My name is Luz Yeager. I'm 33, the oldest, the spreadsheet girl who somehow grew into the spreadsheet woman in my family. I'm the calm one, the one with jumper cables in the trunk and labeled folders in the kitchen drawer, the one who knows where the spare batteries are, which cabinet holds the flashlight, and how to make a broken thing work long enough for everyone else to stop panicking. My younger sister, Lila, is the bright one, the main event. I've always been the sound check before the show. For a long time, I told myself that was fine. I don't need spotlights. I like things that function. I like faucets that don't drip, bills paid on time, shelves that don't wobble. I own a small 2-bedroom house on the edge of town. Nothing glamorous, but it's mine. I fix my own leaks. I know every crack in the hallway paint. And I keep extra light bulbs in a clear plastic bin because chaos usually starts with small dead things no one prepared for. I work at a community college. Not glamorous either. I like that too. Students call me ma'am sometimes, and I still almost turn around to see who they mean. The Tuesday this started, I was sitting in a hospital room with my grandfather. The machines breathed for him in slow, mechanical sighs. The wall clock ticked like it resented being there. I had slept in the vinyl chair for 2 nights, curled under a jean jacket that still smelled faintly of detergent from a rushed load of laundry. My back ached. My mouth tasted like stale coffee and waiting. I held Grandpa's hand and talked to him about the Cardinals game from the night before because routine felt gentler than the truth. My phone lay face down on the rolling tray beside a warm ginger ale, 3 plastic cups, and a packet of crackers no one wanted. It kept buzzing with unknown numbers. I silenced it without looking. I poured water for my grandmother, walked her to the window and back. We spoke in that careful, useless way people do when grief is already in the room, but no one wants to hand it a chair. When she finally fell asleep, I checked my phone. 3 voicemails, all from a number labeled County Title Services. Nobody from a title office ever calls with good news. I stared at the screen, then turned it face down again. My brain had room for one emergency, and it was lying in that bed. Around noon, my father walked in, carrying 2 coffees, and that tall, forced energy he used to bring to my softball games when he wanted credit for showing up. He kissed Grandma's forehead, squeezed my shoulder, and tugged me into the hallway near the vending machines. "You look tired," he said. "I am." His eyes dropped to my phone. "Put that away. Today's not a day for paperwork." I hadn't said anything about paperwork. I frowned. "Good, because I'm not in the mood for whatever this is." He exhaled through his nose. "Your sister has a lot on her plate." That was the first sentence. Not "how are you holding up?" Not "your grandfather may not have much time." Just Lila. Always Lila. He corrected himself too quickly, like he heard it after it left his mouth. "We all have a lot on our plates." A nurse pushed a rattling cart past us. Dad lowered his voice. "After this," he said, nodding toward Grandpa's room, "we need to talk. Nothing dramatic. Just some family logistics." I should have pressed him then. I know that now. But he had that familiar look on his face, the one that meant he had already decided something and was about to act offended if I didn't bless it. "Not now," he added. "Don't start. Just be generous." He said it softly, but I knew that tone. Be generous. The way some people say, be quiet. Back in the room, my aunt was leaning over Grandpa, whispering a prayer. Dad handed me one of the coffees. It was sweet, the way my mother drinks hers, not how I take mine. He stared at the monitor instead of me. "We're lucky to have each other," he said. "Your sister needs us. Don't make everything a debate." I didn't answer. The first trigger wasn't a fight. It was that sentence landing inside me like a folded note slid across a desk. Be generous. Don't make it a debate. I put the coffee down untouched, took Grandpa's hand again, and watched the clock keep moving like it was telling on us. The truth is, I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly have a family problem. It was never one explosion. It was a slow leak. Lila had been golden from the day she was born. Bright, charming, warm, in the effortless way that makes people call you unforgettable after 10 minutes. Teachers remembered her. Neighbors remembered her birthday. She was the kind of girl who could show up late, laugh once, and be forgiven for everything. I was useful. At 19, she blew a tire leaving a party because there were nails in the road. I paid the tow truck because she'd maxed out her card on concert tickets. At 21, she lost her wallet at a music festival and called me sobbing in the rain. So I drove an hour and paid for a motel because she didn't have ID and the front desk clerk was being mean. At 25, she decided to start an online candle shop. I built her a budget, designed a cute logo in an afternoon, and explained inventory costs over takeout while she nodded like I was speaking another language. She mailed me a lavender sample and never opened the spreadsheet. When I asked how she planned to cover the next round of supplies, she smiled and said, "You always figure it out." Our parents loved both of us. That's the line people like to use, and maybe it was true, but they loved Lila out loud. They loved me quietly, and whenever quiet started to bruise, I was asked to be understanding. My father runs a small contracting crew. He can identify a tool brand by sound alone. My mother gardens like a magazine is secretly watching from across the fence. They are not cruel people in the obvious ways. That almost made it worse. Nothing dramatic enough to point at. Just 1,000 tiny tilts in one direction until the whole house leaned. When I was 25, I bought my home with Dad's help. He insisted on being on the title to lock in a better rate, and because, as he put it, one day we'll do a family trust and this will make everything easier. I believed him. We never got around to the trust. There was always something else. Work, holidays, Lila's emergencies. The title stayed the way it was. My name, his name, one shared line on paper I stopped questioning, because questioning things in my family always somehow made me the difficult one. There were other humiliations, quiet ones. Mom handing me a utility bill and saying, "Just this once." Dad asking me to float payroll for his crew for 2 days max. Lila using my Amazon account and texting me a photo of a ring light with the caption, "For the brand." If I hesitated, I was rigid. If I followed up, I was cold. If I asked for a repayment plan, someone would laugh and say, "Luce, we're family, not a bank." 3 months before the hospital, Lila announced she was opening a wellness studio. Not a gym, not a spa, something in between. Plants, neon signs, guided resets, expensive water bottles on floating shelves. She had a Pinterest board, a lease she was manifesting, and a landlord who apparently needed an immediate yes. She needed a deposit, equipment, build-out money, numbers with too many zeros. "I can't," I told her. Not harshly, just plainly. My mortgage, my roof, my aging water heater. My life already had enough claims on it. I offered what I always offered. I'd help her look at cash flow, equipment leasing, used machines, lower risk options. She rolled her eyes. "God, Luce, you are so administrative." Dad stepped in before I could answer. "We'll figure it out." That phrase started showing up everywhere after that. "We'll figure it out." Then came the little pings. A bank email saying my mailing address had been updated. A text from Dad asking for my homeowner's insurance binder. Just to double check something. A family group message from Mom saying, "Proud of us for coming together." Whenever I asked what that meant, Dad brushed it off with a wave of digital static. Routine housekeeping. Nothing heavy. Don't be dramatic. So when County Title Services called while I was at the hospital, I ignored them. Grandpa passed Wednesday morning, quietly, the way he would have wanted. No theatrics, no drawn-out struggle. Just one long fading exhale, then the kind of silence that makes every person in the room suddenly aware of their own hands. We signed papers, we hugged badly, we walked through the motions. Grief lays out for you like stepping stones over deep water. Then I drove home, in that hollow, floating state, where every stoplight feels too bright and every normal thing seems vaguely insulting. After 3 days of hospital air, I unlocked my front door and found 2 envelopes on the mat. One from the bank I already used, one from a bank I didn't. I hung my jacket up, fed the cat, took a too-hot shower that left my skin pink and my head spinning. Then I sat at the kitchen table with a towel over my hair and opened the envelopes like they might still turn into something harmless. The first was a welcome letter for a new home equity line of credit. Bright, cheerful, congratulatory. It listed a variable APR, a credit limit, and an initial advance of $68,000, already funded to third-party escrow. The second was from the county recorder. Confirmation of a deed of trust against my house. My name, my address, my property. My hands went cold so fast it felt like my bones had remembered winter. I called Dad. He answered on the second ring too quickly. "Breathe," he said immediately, like I was already screaming. I hadn't even spoken yet. "What is this?" I asked. He sighed, almost cheerfully. "The house? The equity line? We handled it." My throat tightened. "You mortgaged my house?" "Our house," he corrected, fast and smooth. "I'm on the title too. It was time that property did something for the family. Your sister needed a push. You didn't ask me. If I asked, you would have turned it into a whole production, he said.
Okay, well, that's like
She
half
needed
of my
it more than you.
problem.
That sentence hit harder than the documents.
No wonder.
Flat, clean, final. I looked around my kitchen. The scuffed chair, the cheap clock, the list on the fridge, all the small, solid things I had built and paid for and kept running, and felt something inside me slide out of place. How much? 68 to start, then a draw schedule as she hits milestones. We'll cover the interest from the business until it's on its feet. It's a family investment. No, I said, very calm. The kind of calm that scares people who know me. It's my house. His voice softened, and that nearly made it worse. Don't make me the bad guy for doing what's best for your sister. She has timing. You have stability. We're balancing. I stared at the cat curled by the pantry. He blinked at me like he already knew this house had been invaded. When did you sign? I asked. A beat. Yesterday. 7 hours after my grandfather died. The towel on my shoulder was dripping onto the floor. My jacket hung on the hook by the door, heavy and dark. The whole kitchen felt tilted. Don't spiral, Dad said. Get some sleep. We'll come by after dinner. Your mother already made a casserole. Then he hung up. Just like that, as if the matter were settled, as if grief had made me too tired to notice what had been done to me, as if I would do what I had always done, absorb it. I lowered my head to the table for 1 second, maybe 2. Then I looked back at the welcome letter. On the second page, in small, precise print, was a line about the right to cancel within 3 business days. I read it twice, then a third time. Lila texted me a glittery photo of an empty storefront with the caption, Key Day, followed by a line of pink hearts. I set the phone face down. In my bedroom closet, I pulled down the shoebox with my deed copies and closing papers. Beneath the manila folders was 1 extra page I didn't remember putting there. My father's neat handwriting. Black ink, underlined twice, line info. I stared at it for a long time. My grandfather was barely gone. My father had already put my house under mortgage for my sister. He called it balancing. He called me generous before I even knew I'd been used. He assumed I would stay quiet. He was almost right. At 5:02 p.m., I opened the family group chat and typed, my place, 7:30, non-negotiable. Then I started printing every page. By the time they arrived, the house felt different. Not louder, not colder, just claimed. Like every surface had suddenly decided to belong to me in a way it never fully had before. I set the papers in a neat stack on the table. Welcome letter, deed copy, mortgage statement, the page with the rescission clause highlighted twice. A yellow sticky note sat on top with a case number I had written down after calling the bank. My handwriting was steady. That surprised me. At 7:28, headlights swept across the front window. At 7:31, the door opened without knocking. My mother came in first, carrying foil pans like armor. The smell of baked chicken and rosemary filled the room like this was any other night. We brought dinner, she said brightly, already moving toward the kitchen. Sit, I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It held. Dad paused just inside the doorway, scanning the room the way he always did, as if he were assessing a job site. Lila came in behind him, phone in hand, glancing at her reflection in the hallway mirror before tucking her hair behind her ear. Perfume and sawdust followed them in together. Mom hesitated, then set the pans down slowly. Luz, honey. Sit, I repeated. They sat. I didn't. I pointed to the highlighted line. I'm canceling the line. Silence moved through the room like a calculation. Everyone doing the same math, just at different speeds. Dad broke first. Don't. It came out sharper than I expected. You'll embarrass me, he added quickly. The broker is a friend. I'm not interested in your friend's feelings, I said, or your timeline. Lila let out a small laugh, like I'd said something theatrical. Oh my God, Luz, you're being dramatic. I slid the welcome letter closer to her. You took my roof and called it leverage. Our roof, Dad corrected, immediate. I'm on the paper. I looked at him, really looked this time. Not for long. Mom reached for my arm. Your sister is finally doing something. Don't kick her knees out from under her. I'm not, I said. I'm removing my house from under her. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table. You've always been small about money. Precise. This is bigger than that. There's a difference, I said, between careful and used. Lila crossed her arms. Family helps, Luz. That's how this works. You have stability. I have momentum. We balance each other out. Dad made a decision, I said, my voice still even. I'm making one too. I tapped the sticky note. I already called the bank. I have until midnight tomorrow to cancel. After that, any draw is locked. If you try to move money after I cancel, it becomes something else. Dad's jaw tightened. Don't threaten me. I'm not, I said. I'm explaining the timeline. He stood up abruptly, chair legs scraping the floor. You're going to do this to your sister after everything we've put into you? The words hung there. Everything we've put into you. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. You already did it to your daughter, I said quietly. That landed. Lila's voice sharpened. I'll lose the lease, Luz. I believe you, I said. But I'm not the solution. She stared at me like I'd just stepped out of character. Like I'd missed a line in a script she thought I knew by heart. Dad pointed at the papers. This was a bridge. No, I said. This was a decision made without me. I'm just the first person in this room willing to say that out loud. Mom's eyes filled, quick and practiced. Why couldn't you make it work for everyone? You're good at systems, you always are. I looked at her. Because this system only works if I don't get a say. No one answered that. I slid one more paper across the table. 2 options, I said. We formalize everything, real terms, real boundaries, no shared accounts, no surprise decisions. Or you sign off the title and I refinance without you. Either way, this line is gone tonight. Dad stared down at the page. For a second, I saw something shift. Pride, maybe. Or irritation, bending into something else he didn't want to name. You'll regret this, he said finally. Maybe, I said, but it'll be mine. They left in pieces. Mom first, carrying the untouched casserole like it weighed more than it did. Lila lingered at the door, mascara already starting to blur. You're cruel, she said. I'm consistent, I answered. She shook her head. This was my shot. I didn't soften. Then take it without my house. She laughed once, sharp and hollow. We will. Then she left. The messages started before the car even pulled out. My phone lit up on the table, screen flashing over and over. Don't do this. It's too late to back out. You owe us. Lila sent a string of texts about timing, humiliation, everything collapsing because of me. Dad left a voicemail, his voice tight. You went nuclear. That line was a bridge, Luz. You burned it. Mom's message came softer. We could have figured something out together. I answered once. Separate me from your plans. Then I put the phone on silent. That night, I didn't pace. I didn't cry. I moved. Copies first. Originals into a fireproof envelope. Passwords changed. Accounts checked. I emailed a real estate attorney and wrote one line at the bottom. I want to set a boundary without burning the house down. I stared at that sentence for a second. Then I sent it. Saturday was the funeral. Black suits, tissues, controlled voices. Dad stood at the front and spoke about family, about how we show up for each other, about how that's what matters in the end. He looked at me when he said it. I looked at the flowers. Afterward, near the coat rack, he stepped close enough that no one else could hear. You canceled? I did. The lien will release this week? Yes. He nodded once, eyes dropping to his shoes. I shouldn't have done it like that. Not an apology, but close enough to stand on its own. At home that night, the house sounded different. The fridge humming, the pipes settling. Small noises I'd heard 1,000 times, but now they felt loyal, like they answered to me. On Monday, the attorney called. You acted fast, he said. That matters. You're protected. He could open the line, but he couldn't draw without you. Not legally. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. He walked me through next steps. Documentation, language, how to separate ownership cleanly without turning it into a public war. I emailed Dad that afternoon. 2 options, clear, simple. At the bottom, in bold, you will not use my home as collateral again. 2 days later, he replied, we'll do it right. I'll sign off. I shouldn't be in charge of your roof. I read that line twice. It was the kindest thing he had ever said to me. It still stung. Both things sat there together, not canceling each other out. For the first time, I didn't try to resolve them. I just locked the door.